Hey everyone, I am Kim Beegler, owner of Ewethful Fiber Mill, and we're here at the mill today on a chilly day and I'm getting ready to work on some BFL Shetland cross that I have dyed in the wool. So in lock formation still, we're gonna head to the picker, pick this out, card it out in this episode. And if you're new, welcome. I talk a lot about wool, hand spinning, knitting, owning a wool mill, farming. And if you're returning, thanks for coming back. We have some fun stuff to work on because I was in the dye studio this past week. So let's get going. I'm gonna pull this all off of the drying rack here, and then we're gonna head to the picker and start to pick this out so that what I'm thinking of for it comes to fruition. Okay, we'll head over. All right, so we made our way over to the picker. Here is our fiber pulled off. It's not that much, just under 2 pounds. It was just one fleece, and so not a ton of it, but a lot of times what I'll do in Patreon, which is where usually my stuff lists first over in the Patreon community, and usually what I will do is when I have smaller batches like that, I just try to limit the amount that can be bought by one person just so that it goes around a little bit. So this, I'd probably put like a minimum of 8 ounces on, which I usually sell in 4-ounce lots. So then it can go a little bit further. There is another fun dyed thing that I'm not sure if it'll make it to this shop update in Patreon or not. I'm gonna turn the picker on, but I have my microphone on, so yay. Anyway, we'll see how carding goes this week. It's a little bit drier here in Oregon and cold, which means I lose humidity in the building. So actually what I should do is also turn my lights off, which I'm gonna do right now. Nope, not that much, but I'll turn the light on that we're not using. So the picker, for those of you that are new, is designed to open up the fiber so that the carding machine, which is the next step, has an easier time of processing. So that's what we're doing here. I open up a little bit more because, well, I dyed it, so some of it's going to be a little bit tighter in spots, and that chunk is a little felted. And these locks are not crazy long, so sometimes they can just not make their way into, there's actual big, like tiny teeth in there, very sharp, that the fiber runs through. And if the locks are smaller or things are really compacted, it's not going to do the best job, and I want it to do the best job so that when I get to the carder, it can do its best job, and then the fiber you are spinning is the best that I can make. So that's how I roll here at Ewethful. And because I dyed this up, and my orange, I'm not going to lie, one batch of the orange was a little dicey because I put it in a smaller pot, then decided that's not enough water and or room for the amount of wool I had in it, so then I had to switch it, and that's not ideal to have to move pots while things are a little bit warmer and the wool's in it and stuff. So, but it actually looks like it fared pretty well. If it had been like a merino fleece, there's no way I would have done it. I would have just had to bite it and say this is going to be 2 different dye lots. Which doesn't matter when you're dyeing in the wool because this is all going to blend out. But if you were doing, if you were trying to, ow, there's a thorn in there. Anyway, so you'll notice I am not blending these here. My goal is I will pick them out separately, and then we will run back and forth on the carder so that the roving goes back and forth with some blending in between, because that's what's going to naturally happen on the carder. These are kind of fall-y colors, I realize, but they also just make me happy, and I know they make you all happy, so I have no doubt that they will be enjoyed and they'll disappear quickly. So I'm gonna finish up over here. I'll let you guys go see the floof as it's coming out of the machine, and then when it's done, we'll open it up and take a look so you can see how much. So there's the picker itself. Here's the room the little space that it pops out of, which is a shower if you are new to my channel. And I'm gonna finish picking, and then we'll open it up, and I'm gonna stop so you all don't have to watch 15 minutes of me picking. Okay, we'll be back in a minute. Okay, we have got this out, so I am going to walk into some orange fiber, catch a little bit as it falls, and there is our fluff. So you can see it's a lot more picked out. And as I condition and when it goes on the carder, I'll like keep, because some of those locks are a little bit, like I mentioned, smaller. So you can see so it's picked more, but some of them still kind of just travel through. So as I condition it, which I was going to do with you all here, I'll work on picking it out a little bit more. So we'll grab, we want as much as we can get since we didn't have very much of this fiber, and I know it will be popular, so we don't want to lose too much along the way if we can avoid it. So I'm going to pull it out, and then we're just going to do a quick condition on it. And I'm going to condition it when it was really humid. I was doing very light or no conditioning, but since it is not very humid right now, what we are going to do is condition it. Okay, it took me a minute to find my conditioner, and I'm very low in this bottle, so I've got to mix up some more, but I am just going to spray it in, and then I just mix it around a little bit, and I'll do another batch. This totally is dependent on, there are times where I could definitely get away with not conditioning. And conditioning does what it does to our hair, right? It helps bring a little bit of moisture back into that fiber, and the fibers will soak it up. So I won't process this immediately. I like to let it sit. Like, I won't do this till tomorrow. But at home, you know, you can do what you do. And the other day, it was so dry, I was having to mist a little bit of conditioner on the carder in feed while it was going in. So it just depends. That was also with mohair, which is just a little more staticky in general. So this will be sitting, and then I'm going to go through and pick out the next color, and then it'll be off to the carder. Okay. All right, I'm here. And we are doing this. So this is that BFL Shetland. When it first came out, I was like, I don't know, y'all. I don't know if I like this. I almost stopped and split the colors up, just did solid orange and solid blue, but I pulled a big chunk of it out, and I was like, okay, I'm feeling it better now. I'm feeling it better. So I'm just going back and forth. I'm weighing out kind of how much I'm putting per third so that I get the repeats quickly enough. I'm just over here weighing more fiber. I swear I'm here. So you can see how between each feed, which is the blue line and the blue line, I'm going back and forth with basically the same amount of each color so that they will overlap. That's the goal here, is that we get pretty quick overlaps. So when you're spinning, and of course you could break the roving up and spin it however you want to spin it, but there's going to be parts that are, I'm going to make sure we're running well at the other end. There are going to be parts that are heavier on this tealy color, and then there's going to be parts that are heavier on the orange color, but they're all kind of going to also blend together and overlap the way I have it running. So let's pop over to the other side, and I do have one pulled out so you can kind of see the finished. So here we are, and I think this is getting ready to go more back into the orange, which is where I got a little bit tied up in the color. But once I saw it all together, then I was liking it a lot better. You can see how most of it's going to have a blend in some amount of the two colors, but we're coming into the heavier orangey color. It's very fall-y winter. I think it's going to spin up beautifully given this. I know this fiber, I haven't got a chance to spin it, but we'll spin a little bit of it up maybe at the end. There's not very much, so I'm going to turn the machine off We probably are starting to go to the blue. Yes, you can start seeing more blue coming now. And then it'll have this heavy overlap spot. And then we'll get a little bit denser into that blue color, teal color, whatever it is. I'm just saying blue. But let's go ahead. I'm gonna stop this and we'll run over. I pulled 4 ounces off so you could see how it looks. This is all fiber that's ready to go. I'll do a Patreon shop update. I usually do them. I'm goaling for every 2 weeks. Sunday mornings I have one. So there you go. That's how it looks. And it's a little bit muddied out because of the light on, but let me walk around it. So that's how it looks. And that, I was like, okay, I'm on board with that. Excuse me while I walk past this. That is going to be lovely to spin. And actually, I think the orange, for me, the orange would have been too orange. So that little bit of blue is going to tone it down a bit when you're spinning it. I think it's going to be really pretty and really lovely to spin. So, and fun. Okay, let's, I'm not sure where we're going next, but we're going somewhere. All right, you all, we are here at the picker, but we are staring at some silk right now. And I just wanted to show you the difference. So this is some silk that I dyed up at home, and I break up my silk top before I dye it. So this is some broken top. This is silk still in top form. And you can see how well I'm able to saturate the silk when it's broken up because it's not so dense and compacted as it is in top. So here is the top. Somebody else dyed this for me a while ago, and you can see how hard it is because if you open it up, you know, top is really dense, whether it's silk or wool, whatever it is. And so opening it up allows the dye to get through. If you can't get it open very well when it's in top, this is what happens, is that it takes really unevenly and it doesn't really saturate well except for in a couple spots. So there's a tip for if you want to be dyeing some silk at home. I would say, and I'm just gonna break this while I'm here. Some of it's a little tied up there. I'm just gonna break this while I'm here, but this is what I do before. I would just break like what I'm doing, just pulling chunks of it out that way. And it's not gonna be quite as open as this when you go to dye it, when you pull, I mean, you can open it up as much as you want, but just stripping it a bit so that when you go to dye it, the dye is able to get through. Now, it doesn't really matter. I mean, depending on what you're doing, for me, it doesn't matter. I'm just adding some silk to another fiber, so it's not a big deal. But if you want a more saturated dyed silk, that's how the easiest way to do it is just to open it up. And I just, oops, sorry guys, I keep hitting the camera, don't I? I just dye this in a pot once I have it broken up, and you can move it around pretty well. Like I haven't had in this over here to the left that I dyed it up just like I would wool, but it does take more dye to actually saturate well. And I rinsed it out the same as I would. There is more dye that will come out of it than with wool. I did soak it for quite a long time, several days before dyeing it, but I dried it the same way. I rinsed it, did all my rinses on it, and then put it in my washing machine and let the spin cycle happen, and it was perfectly fine. So what we are doing with that beautiful fiber is we are going to blend it with some of our big girls wool, which I've got here on the right now. And we're just gonna blend, it's gonna be about 10% silk, and the rest of it will be our big girls fiber. So, but again, you'll see I've done this recently with about 10% dyed silk, how much color it will change and add to the white wool. Okay, so we are just going to start picking here, and I will be laying like I usually do. I lay the silk on the bottom. Doesn't really matter. I already know how much silk I have, so in the blending process, you know, it's fine. We're gonna see how this does today. And then I'm laying my wool on top, and I'll pull it apart just a little bit because it is kind of chunked up, and I'll keep picking out. There's a little bit of EM in here, but not too bad in the wool. So I'm gonna turn the machine on, and we'll see how this all goes. It is a little bit, the humidity's okay. It's okay. It is colder than crud in here today. We've had cold weather and sun the past couple days, which has been nice. Generally in Oregon this time of year, if it's not raining. If it's raining, it's a little bit warmer. If it's not raining, then it's going to be a little bit colder. And it has not been raining. It's been cold, which dries things out and it makes for not ideal wool mill conditions. Now, when I drove into Halsey today, it was at home. I had sunshine. In Halsey, it does not have sunshine, and they're only about 15 miles apart. I don't even know if they're that far. And it feels much colder without the sunshine, let me tell you. The building feels much colder than it has for several days. So I am going to pull this. So the wool that I'm using, I said my big girls, but not everybody knows that. Our bigger girls are newer to our farm. We got them a little bit older, and this wool is coming to us from the shepherd that raised them. She saved their wool for years. She hand shore them all, but she wasn't really a wool person. So when we agreed to take them from her, because she was downsizing, they're moving off the farm, she said, here, take all this wool too. And so some of this is up to, 8 years old. I don't know like when was from when, but we've talked about it before. As long as wool is stored well, cat is looking at the back room like there's something good in there. Anyway, as long as wool is stored well, and I'm just kind of watching to see if it's going to get caught up in the teeth. And I'm going to go check here in a minute and see, and then I'll take you all over and you can see what's coming out the other end. See if it is. So I don't want it to be getting caught up in the teeth. Part of that would be that this is just kind of the fiber itself. And part of it would be that it's drier. But it looks like we're doing pretty good. We're not getting a lot of humidity. So I'll do one more batch and then I'll let you guys go see what it looks like on the other side. And you can see I am opening up, especially the silk that I dyed. The silk that was in top, I was able to open up pretty quick when I broke it. It kind of opened itself. But the stuff that I dyed that I had already broken is a little more compacted. So I'm just opening that up before it goes into the picker. And I'm going to take you all over and let you see how pretty it looks coming out the other side. Boop. A little more. You can see the silk is trying to poop out the end. So here we are at the end. It's just shooting everything out. And you can see how much that little bit of color in the silk is adding to the fiber. So I'm going to keep working on this and we'll catch it at the end. All right, we have got this all done now. And open up the doors. And there is our beautiful pile of fluff for today. And it actually did really well. Very minimal static, and nothing got caught up on the roller, so we're pretty good. Let this big giant, this is all stuff that accumulates on the little vacuum system we've got. So now I will pull it out, condition it, and we'll card it up tomorrow. I thought you might enjoy seeing the floof get pulled out because that is kind of a fun part, right? So before you'll see I kind of pull from all areas because I think when I started, I wasn't doing the silk as heavy. Kind of happens when I don't run silk as much as I used to. So I kind of just do a mix up and then I'll condition it that way. Hopefully you could see and I wasn't too much in the way. Okay, now we'll move on to the carder. All right, this is the last fiber that we're going to card up for this episode. This is, and it's showing up a little bit paler than it is in real life, but this is our big girl. So it is BFL East Frisian crosses with some berry colored silk that I dyed up and some sari silk that's in a green. So you can see how it is going to be, there's going to be spots where that sari is a little bit heavier and spots where not, those green pops. I kind of just wanted it to be what it was. Spots where the berry color is going to be heavier, spots where not. So it's going to have a little texture. It's going to be super fun to spin. So let's go to the other side and we'll see. I'm going to stop the machine because you can see that I could otherwise wrap up, but you can kind of see those little pops of green in there. So let's go over here and I'll load up a little bit more while we finish talking and then we can finish, but I don't want it to get caught up. Isn't that so pretty? I actually didn't have any weighed out, so let me weigh some out. So this is the same fiber that I did. If you watch the December Fiber Club one, this is the same wool. So it's some of our big girls' wool. And that one I blended with some green silk I had dyed up. And everybody in club really loved it and loved how fun it was to spin. So I thought, okay, let's do something different. And somebody in, I think the last episode when I was washing it, they said, I think it was Anetta, I cannot remember at this moment, but she mentioned Valentine's Day, and I was like, oh, I'm going out of town. Can I get it done fast enough? But yes, I could, it turns out. So I dyed up some berry silk, and that's what's blended in here. We saw that in the picking. And then I was driving around, which is often how these things come to me. I was driving around and I thought maybe it would be fun to so it's not necessarily a Valentine's, because not everybody loves these colors. So, and it will feel a little bit less pinky if I throw these pops of sari silk in there. So all I am doing, I have sari silk and it's in a top form. So you can see, this is how it came to me. It's in top form. So I'm just breaking it up, and I didn't want it to be super uniform. So I'm just breaking up chunks of it, maybe about 5 per feed, so that there are going to be spots where it's a little bit heavier, spots where it's a little less heavy. It's not super overwhelming, but it adds a little extra pop to it, which I thought would be fun. And it would take a little bit away from that pinky if people don't like that. I really like this berry color, even when it's a little bit less saturated with the white wool. So I'm just gonna pop this on and then we'll go take one more quick peek as it's finishing up. I just like to have this kind of loaded, but really it's time to switch buckets. Not put a little bit, especially because of the color difference, a little bit of this is gonna go a long way. So let me pop this on. We'll go back in and then let's go finish this bucket out. And that's what can happen. We caught it on film. Did y'all see that? So you can see, let me wrap you around. What will happen is if the conditions are not perfect, which it isn't, it's more prone to pulling. So what happened is it pulled it backwards. So this is where my roving is. It should be in here, but it pulled it back up between those two rollers and it'll just keep wrapping. It'll start pulling and pulling. So as it's coming off the carder, it will be wrapping and it will also be wrapping stuff out of here. It'll actually pull stuff. Ugh, it's a nightmare. So we caught it quickly. So all I have to do is break it. Let me move you around. And this is why I was ready to change the bucket out, which I will do now, is if it gets too full down here and it's just a little bit, the conditions aren't perfect, it's more apt to do it. So I'm gonna break this down here and then hopefully you can see, yes. And then I'm just gonna put a new bucket so that this has a long way to drop and it's not risking being anywhere up. And then I'll start this again and we'll just pull this out, all this excess. But I am telling you, it can wrap up so much fiber in between those rollers. It's unreal. And if it's a longer staple length, you literally have to you just have to pull and start pulling and pulling and pulling. And I swear, it's insane how much can fit into those rollers if you're not paying attention. So you gotta, hopefully you could see it in the video, but there we are. And I think this is gonna be so much fun to spin. Okay, let's go do a little bit of hand spinning of something before we end this episode, because we have to, right? We have to. All right, you all, we are up close and personal at the Lendrum and time to do a little spinning. So I grabbed some of this Valentine fiber. I called it maybe Valentine, I think. So I was going to spin this. I'm going to do it a little bit short forward just because I've got the camera set up so that you could see this. And it's really spinning up, considering that it's got texture to it. It's spinning up really nice. You can see a little pop right there. So I threw all that extra texture in. Wish is here to see what's going on. So when I'm spinning short forward, I am keeping my hands nice and light, because even when you're spinning short forward, this fiber is going to take, I'm going to pull up the uptake just a little bit. Even when you're spinning short forward, you can practice having those hands nice and loose, your front hand and your back hand. And my back hand kind of lightens as I go. Hopefully you can see. Yes, you can. Sorry, this is making this. I'm hitting somewhere. Okay. So my front hand is really light and my back hand literally like lets go as I start to draft. So I always just say practice, see how light you can practice letting go, right? How lightly can you hold the fiber? Because, and know your staple length. Those are two big things to getting a nice even yarn. And this is gonna have texture, but the yarn itself is actually still spinning. Really nicely. Wish is going to go board. So she's mad because she didn't get any wet food this morning. She does not travel well in her box. Hopefully the camera is not bouncing so much. Ooh, this is pretty. And it's really pretty next to the last color that I sampled on here. So I'll stop here. But know your staple length. Keep your hands nice and light. And those are the keys, really, whether you're doing short forward or long draw, to getting a nice even yarn. Also, how your fiber is prepped is going to make it easier, especially with long draw. You can kind of maneuver a lot more when you're doing short forward because you're just doing those little baby drafts. But long draw, you're doing a big long draw, so you're really leaning into your fiber being prepped well for an even yarn in long draw. Okay. This is fun to spin. Let me take you off. All right, so here we are taking a peek at it, and you can just see the little pops there. It's really fun to spin up. And then this is actually what I spun up, just a tiny sample from that other fiber that I did. That was the orange and the tealy color. So that was heavier on the teal, but it had some orange in there too. And I really like how it worked itself out. So there we are. Another week done. I'm going to flip so I can say goodbye. Hey everyone, I'm out of here. I actually don't think there will be a video next week because I am headed out on the Pura Vida knitting retreat with Fruity Knitting Podcast and Claudia Quintanilla. So I will be in Costa Rica, and I will get some good clips, hopefully, for you all while I'm there, something to share when I get back. And there will be lots of knitting and embroidering, which is also exciting, and sun time and pretty Costa Rica. So until next week, everybody stay healthy, be kind to everybody around you, and make so many pretty things. I look forward to hearing from you all on this episode and seeing you in a couple weeks. Okay, thank you so much.